Hi, everyone. We have Len Schmiel joining us today. Hi, Len.
Hi, Gabor, and everyone else.
Yeah, and we want to. Len wants to share the stories of these paintings that he has, and it just I think we have this great medium, the video medium, and I I think that there's some wonderful stories behind these paintings, Len. And we'll have it on full view as you guys can see it on the screen here, and Len is just gonna share the stories behind these paintings because I feel that there's just some great things that are hidden behind the paint. So Len is the expert since he painted these. Since you painted these, Len, you can just kind of take it away and tell me if you want me to click somewhere or go back to an image. And
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Well, this first one, this is, let's see, it's titled Scrub Jay's Breakfast Menu, Rose Hips. Um, I was, this rose bush, this is a wild rose. We have quite a few of them around here in the valley that I live in Colorado. And so I was, let's see, this is winter before last, I guess it was, or late fall. And Um, I just wandering around about the crack of dawn. Wasn't even his sun hadn't even come up quite yet, and it was just pretty bright, overcast day. And I was wandering around down. This scene is down below my studio in a ravine uh, where uh, where our domestic water comes and from the spring down there. And I was, as I say, wandering around and I saw this wild rose bush. And for whatever reason, it was just struck me as something that was interesting. And at the time, I didn't know how I would develop it into a painting, but I had my iPhone with me, so I took a couple shots of it. And this is the finished painting. What's it, 20, I don't know, it's a 32, 37 or something like I can't remember the size, but they escape me because they're not standard sizes.
it's big.
But yep, Gabor, can you go to
Yeah.
here's the shot of the actual scene. Uh, my studio is up to the right, and down to the left is a small spring that has a big cattail swamp in it. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of difference between what I started with and what I painted. But I was, as I said, did it a couple winters ago or a couple falls ago, and I was thinking about it the whole time off and on. I would just my mind would just go back to this scene and wondered what I would do with it. My first idea. Let's go back to the painting now. First idea was that I would put bluebirds into it because bluebirds um, are more insect eaters than these birds are called scrub jays, and they're local indigenous jays. They're related to crows and blue jays and so forth. Um, but my thought was, well, bluebirds don't eat berries, so that won't work. And they're a much smaller bird, and I wanted to have them so that you could actually see them. But I wanted the blue color, and I went, well, for gosh sakes, scrub jays work. And I was looking out my kitchen window at one point and saw the family out there, new hatchlings, and so then I started thinking about that and um, started developing an idea about what I would do with the painting, where where I would place things in it. And when I finally decided on the scrub jays, I was talking to a friend of mine, Julia, who is a really good photographer, and she loves to photograph birds and has a place about 20 miles from here, a little higher in the mountains. And so I just happened to mention to her about this painting because we both really like the scrub jays. They're a real pain because they steal everything, but and they're kind of pesky, but still in all, they're really pretty. Um, so I happened to mention it to her, and was thinking about the scrub jays, and I had a couple photographs of my own, and after I mentioned it, she said, "Well, I have a mess of them coming to my feeders on my porch." And I went, "Oh, okay. Well, what about taking some shots?" And she said, "Sure." So I had a I had an idea. I switched around the placement of these sapling cottonwood trees that were coming up, and in the thinking about how I wanted to compose this painting, the sapling that's actually were over on the left-hand side of the painting in the photograph, or in the photograph, and just moved them around and did did a few sketches, and then told Julia that there was one shot in particular that I wanted to get, and then I sent her a little drawing of the one that's up here in the sapling that's right in front of us with the scrub jay in it. And luckily, her porch was in the shade, and so all of the shots in the bird were also in the shade with some backlighting, so it actually would fit perfectly into the idea that I had for this early morning overcast scene with these birds coming in. So she sent me, gosh, I don't know, maybe 50 shots, which were all really great. And I just had to figure out how I would use them. I had to change the lighting on a couple of them. One of them, I have to move this because I can't see it. The one that's here on the right-hand side of the image that's kind of swooping in, and I just really wanted to get some of the activity that these guys do. They're really raucous. They just, when the family gets together, there's a lot of back and forth between them. And one of the problems I was having with the painting after I got it mostly finished was the area on the upper left hand corner. I didn't have that bird in there turning into to take another look at the bush. And if you put your finger over that bird, it changes the way you see the painting. And it took me about a month to figure that out. I kept looking, and I changed the color of the sky back there. I changed the color of the mountainside. I changed the color of the meadow. I got the trees darker and lighter, and it was sitting there one afternoon, and I went, I need another bird there. And so I went back to Julia's references and picked that one out as it was turning back in. And if you just take your thumb and put your thumb over that, it changes the whole darn painting for me. So it was a lot of fun. This was lots of trial and error in this one. And
you got to look at this painting for a little while. Then it was kind of sitting there, and you went back and forth, right?
Yeah. Yes, this was, yeah, it was on my easel, good couple months, probably, because I wasn't able to work on it continuously. And I do like to work on one painting until it's finished. I'm not a person that likes to put one on the easel and take it off. I like to have a continuous train of thought and let the problems, if there are problems, solve themselves subconsciously. And some solutions come to these, as with this one, it was just, I knew there was something bothering me about it, and it was basically finished, and I had to put that extra bird in there to make it feel whole to me. So I went through a lot of iteration. There's different layers of paint on it, which is another thing I don't usually do. I usually try to keep the painting fresh by continually working on it, but there are ways to do it to keep it, still keep it fresh. So
this is an area that you walk by a fair amount in the morning.
Well, yeah, it's on my property. It's I have 17 and a half acres, and about 6 acres of it is the top of a mesa. It's a peninsula that comes off of the Grand Mesa and it overlooks the Gunnison River. The
Oh.
property does. It's about 3/4 of a mile away, and another couple 100 feet down into the valley. But this ravine is really interesting because it's a migratory. I'm on a migratory route for several hundred mule deer. That this is winter range, and elk. There's about 400 elk that winter here and
Wow.
across the property. And
You get everything there. It's a menagerie of
yeah, oh yeah, there's the coyotes, mountain lions, right out off my front porch about 100 yards in the and a sub kind of ravine that goes down into the main one here. Last winter, I was out there after a snow, and there was a set of mountain lion tracks in the snow, fresh, and 2 cubs or 2 kits that were kind of going along with her. So they're real close, and bears.
Don't
Forward.
don't get Len started about the bears. That the bear that stole his honey. So that's a
No, I destroyed my hives 2 years run, or well, actually not 2 years running, and I have an 8-foot fence around the whole place to keep them out because I couldn't have anything growing with the deer and the elk, particularly the elk. My gosh, they're 400 elk, and I have 4 acres of ground planted in cover for them in wildlife food that I leave for them over the winter. So
keeps him out.
yeah, I don't know. You have anything you want to add to that?
No, it's just
Nope.
it's I love the design of this painting and how you imagine how the painting is gonna be, how you imagine this place to be. I think to me that's what I love about the story, that those jays were not per se flying around, but you've seen instances like this, so you just read it or put it.
Yeah, I from the original, from the photograph, it was more upright. As you can see, there's no real obvious lean to the left. And I did that in the painting just to give it a feeling of downhill and a little more action. But that led to looking to the left with that open slot there in the upper left-hand corner, and I couldn't figure out. I mean, I put the saplings in there to sort of prevent that from happening compositionally, but then, as I said, until I finally hit on the idea of the bird in there, which turns it. It's really subtle, but it turns you right back into the composition. At least it does for me. So
Yeah, no, it sure does. Yeah, it's great gesture, beautiful gesture. Yeah, so we have the let's see as we're skipping along. This guy here.
yeah, this is a small piece that I did. It's a little 12 by 12 that was in the Master Show at the Autry this February, and this is again, it's kind of composite. I love to paint water, as Gabor did a Zoom feature on a discussion about painting water. And I just kind of assembled this. I had a general shot from years ago, and just liked it and thought, well, I can make a small painting out of that for the meeting wall at the Autry. And then I looked at it and thought, well, maybe I should make a larger one of it. So if you'll go to the next one, and this is the larger version. It's just a little not quite as contrasty as the painting actually is. The painting is actually a little bit brighter looking, but I just thought that I would like to expand it and kind of repeat the pattern of this foremost young tree that's there in the or in the middle distance, I guess. And with all of those little tree holes coming from the background through it, I thought it just made it really sparkle. So I really kind of emphasized that, and didn't put much detail into the tree, as if because it was in the shadow and with the brightness coming from behind, I wanted to give the illusion of kind of having to blink at it and then I repeated that same shape with the darker one that's right behind it to the left. And then there's a real subtle one, the gold one, colored one, that's to the upper left of the dark one, and with basically no detail in it. Um, just trying to bring that into one big solid mass, because I love to design space. It's really fun for me, and to try to manipulate where people look in the painting. And I love to paint water, so I put more water in it.
Is this
and refined it with more of the rubble and so forth. That's there in the left-hand side in the river itself. I don't know. I just the richness of it and the time of year. It's really evocative of being here in Colorado in the fall in some meadow bottom with a gentle creek at really low water flowing through.
Was this a place that was it near your house, or is this a place you'd like to go back to?
You know, I'm not really sure where it is. I can't remember.
Exact spot.
It's just from a long time ago. I remembered gosh, I think it was actually from a 35 millimeter years and years
Oh,
ago.
wow. Okay.
And just I did a scan and threw it up there and on the screen, and did a lot of manipulation with this one too. And you can see the little sketch, the little small painting that I did.
What size is this?
Quite a bit.
Roughly?
This is a 2232, is it? Yeah, 2232, I think, or 2233. I'm not sure. Again.
You fly fish too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, this is such a classic. Could be such a classic place to fish. And
Absolutely. Yes, for sure.
Is,
You know, there's and one of the reasons I paint water so much is because I spend so much time in it, in waders, fishing. Not as much as I used to, unfortunately, but the garden's gotten in the way of that. Bigger garden. So anyway, so I just tried to give the overall impression of a really bright fall day with low light, nothing, nothing. Well, I guess it's kind of dramatically lit. So.
Is the paint? It'd be harder to see an image, but the light areas. Do you have a fair amount of paint on there?
Yeah. I use a fair amount of paint anyway, and I love the colors, the big shape of the trees on the left hand side of the painting, with the slight reds and the slight greens, the richness. There's some kind of warmer greens that feel like there's a little bit of that orangey light on them, and then darker one. I like playing back and forth with that. So there's quite a bit of texture and quite a lot of paint, pretty much for the whole painting. I just like the viscous quality of paint, pushing it around with a brush. And that's fun for me. So.
Yeah, I think people. I think if someone's looking at this painting, the simplicity that how you simplified, funneled something down. It's so complex if you look at it with your own eyes. That's the difficulty, I think, with I see with landscape painters, that sometimes they want to put every little leaf there, and you literally funneled it down to the core essence of it, and we see it's a beautiful fall day. You don't have to explain to us that these are trees, but.
Well, I actually in the background mass, I had more detail in it, and would look at it and go, well, that's not working. So it didn't have that. When you put a lot of detail in it, or when I do it, I should say, it's different for everybody, but I wanted to have a bit of a shimmering quality to it. And with a lot of detail, what you do as human is focus on detail. And rather than having you focus on detail, I wanted just the textures to speak and subtly. So that's what I was trying to do with mimicking what would happen if you were there,
Yeah.
and it would just kind of be shaking a little bit with a breeze, with a really gentle breeze. So.
Yeah.
And working with the color. I mean, these are not necessarily all the, well, for sure, not all of the colors that would be there,
Mhm.
but making them work one color, as I was saying, with the left-hand side, the slight reds against the slight greens, but in the same value range, the value being the dark and lightness of an object, and they're all sort of basically in the same value range. So,
Mhm.
uh, and rocks and water, love them. So,
Yeah.
why don't you go to that little water lily piece? Unless you can think of
No, it's
another question.
I think of a few questions, but yeah, the scene is just it's so beautiful. It kind of takes me back because I used to fish a lot with my dad. So
Mhm.
um,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fun. And this is a 16 by 12 of the lily pond in my front yard. It's I've always wanted water around me and never had an opportunity. So when I bought this property and built the studio and the house, I took me a few years to decide where to put the pond. But so I have quite a large garden and a vineyard, and as I mentioned, that 4 acres of it well amounts to pasture or wildlife food. And I have quite a bit of irrigation water, and I needed a place to store some irrigation water too, so I could water when the irrigation water was. I share it with 2 other lots up here, so when it wasn't my turn, I wanted to be able to still water all of these things. So I had an irrigation pond built. It's irregularly shaped, but it's 60 by 90 feet, and it's 9 feet deep, and lined with a rubber liner, and a little bit when
I love this story. I
serendipitously.
like this story. This is funny.
Well, this is actually before even that happened.
Oh,
Uh, the fellow that was digging the pond for me, I mean, the top of the bulldozer would disappear into the pit. It was 9 feet. It's pretty tall.
yeah.
So uh, he was working on the west end of it, and he came up with a piece of red plastic tape, and he got off the bulldozer. I just happened to be out there, and he said, "Len, you have an electrical line running through here?" And I went, "Oh
Oh,
my God, I
oh,
forgot."
okay.
And this goes from the box to the house, the
Mm.
west edge of the pond. And I said, "Yeah, it's down there at 4 feet." And he said, "Well, I think we better stop digging here." And I said, "Oh, okay, that's a good idea." We want to get to the main line of the house. But what it did was, I said, "Well, just extend that," because it was almost this line of electrical access to the house ran along the west border for about, oh gosh, about 65, 70 feet. And I
Mhm.
said, "Well, just make a shelf in there." And immediately my mind started going, "What can I put on this shelf?" The shelf is about 8 or 9 feet wide, but then it drops off to 9 feet.
Yeah.
So I had him leave the shelf, and then we put the liner over that, and I put a line of rocks along the edge, just so that if I was out there wading around with it, fooling around and doing something, that I wouldn't step off the edge and, and waders or something if it was cold.
Yeah.
I'm not a good swimmer, and
Especially with waiters.
yeah, they fill up with water. It makes
So,
you even less of a good swimmer.
uh,
So, but yeah, and I've been in creeks many times, slipping off a rock. But so it gave me a perfect opportunity to plant water lilies along this whole thing, and so I planted a bunch of water lilies. I think I had about 12, and then over a period of about 5 or 6 years, the cattails started growing in the pond, because over the liner I put I had them put about 6 inches of earth from the excavation back on top of the liner so that I would have bugs and mayflies and so forth hatching and dragonflies. And what I didn't think of was that even though it was really quite deep and cattails aren't supposed to grow in deep water, that they'd start growing. And up until 3 years ago, they had actually pretty much covered about 2/3 of the surface of the pond.
Mm.
Because what I hadn't figured on, I mean, they're not supposed to grow in more than 4 feet of water. So they started up high and the banks of this thing are pretty steep. So what would happen was they start growing up high and then they would slip down the liner a little bit. And once they're rooted, they can actually grow more than 4 feet in 4 feet of water. So the earth would slip a little bit each year, and the cattails could just keep getting closer and closer to 6 or 7 feet. And so it became about 2/3 cattails. So then I had the same fellow come out with a track hoe to scoop those buggers off of there so we could see the pond again. And in the process, God, we took out 8 dump truck loads of cattails, which is a lot of cattails. But in the process, he ripped some holes in the liner, which really wasn't his fault. I mean, you can't be too darn delicate with a track hoe. And so I had some 6-foot tears in the liner, and it took weeks to repair those. And just when I thought we had it finished, I filled it with water, and then I would watch it slowly go down. Like, oh God, well, I'm going to just let it go down to the level where the leak is. And I waited and waited and waited. It takes a long time for a slow leak to go to 9 feet of water, but it finally did. But it only had about a foot of water left in it at the bottom. So I figured, well, it's got to be along the water line. Well, in the process, we found 14 other leaks on top of the 11, I think it was, that the track hoe had torn. So finally got all those patched up, and I took all the earth off the liner. I didn't take it off myself, thankfully. Old guys out there doing that. But so anyway, I had to replant the lilies, and these are some of the new ones that are growing now. And I put 18 in last year, and they're growing really well. They're really pretty. I get some different ones this time. And I love to pay water, and I really like water lilies too, because they're really gorgeous.
It is a nice pond. Yeah, it's a gorgeous pond. I've seen it. So I mean, basically these paintings and pretty much most of your paintings are your life. It's what you see. It's what around you. It's not right. It's what makes you kind of tick.
Yeah, I pick the things that interest me. I'm not painting one thing over and over because I'm that interested in just one thing. I mean, I have certainly there are people out there that do it really wonderfully. There's an article in one of the current magazines on Farney, and he did really wonderful paintings of the Native Americans when he was in the West. And my gosh, yeah. So, but I just I get excited about too many things, like water lilies and a dumb autumn rose bush with a few rose hips on it. And so,
Yeah.
and the water pieces. Yeah, I like a variety of things. It's challenging for me. I probably don't do any of them as well as someone who concentrates on a subject or a series of subjects, but it just keeps me interested more. It's a little bit more challenging, and I'm challenging, so there you go.
There you go, perfect match. But the lily pond itself too. It's a living, breathing mechanism that changes throughout the months, years, seasons too. So you constantly get different inspirations, because I've seen you paint it, obviously before.
Yeah, it changes by the minute at times during the days. The bottom of this painting is the bottom of the pond. It's probably only has about maybe 8 or 9 inches of water right there, but it steeply falls away towards the center of the pond where it's that deep. And when my irrigation water is coming straight up, it's coming straight out of the mountains. It's not very, the watershed is not very lengthy, where to the top of the watershed from where I am to up to McClure Pass. It's probably only 35 miles as a crow flies. So it can be very, very clear, especially in midsummer if we hadn't any weather. So this is an example of when it was very, very clear. And I had to, the whole thing would be floating if I hadn't put the mimicking the cloud or the sky color at the top. It was so clear at this point that they would look like a bouquet that
Yeah, it does.
was almost in a vase.
Yeah.
So I put the one reed that's kind of swooping in from the right-hand side, and there's a subtle shadow underneath it that just sort of give you the impression that there's a surface to the water there. And so the transitions are fun for me too.
So you're kind of like an engineer and the designer together, where the engineer or the designer designs it, but then the engineer says, "What the heck is this? I can't. This will not fit." Right. So that's what kind of happens in a painting too.
Yeah.
Right.
There's it's a lot more to it than just putting paint on canvas. And thinking about it, the concept, I keep going back to having an idea and then trying not to lose myself in how much fun I'm having or how much difficulty I'm having. If it gets to a difficulty, I sit back and think about what I wanted to do with the painting in the first place. What was my concept? What was my idea? What did I want to say with this painting? And it doesn't have to be very complicated. You can be, I like water lilies, so I want to paint a pretty water lily picture. So, but this one, and then I try to make it convincing as if it were something you could experience, but I don't want it to be photographic detail. I'm not that kind of person. So I take it to what I sense is enough that I'm sort of convinced by it, by the level of detail. So I don't need to see every little vein in a water lily pad, for instance. So
yeah, I think the untrained eye thinks opposite, thinking that if it's highly detailed, you can see every grass, blade of grass or leaf on it, it's a great work. And it's totally the opposite, as you and I know, that it literally is the opposite.
Yeah, it works. I mean, Andrew Wyeth certainly was able to accomplish wonderful things with detail. It's just not my deal. I'm kind of all over the place with my subjects, and as I've said before, I see nature as organized chaos, and that's kind of my life. So
Perfect.
A little chaotic, but it's organized. It is. So.
Yeah, it's not a random mess.
Yeah, at a random level.
Yeah, it would look like that too if that's what it was. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with polishing a painting up less or more, but as long as the fundamentals are there, I think that's the bigger.
Yeah. I think the craftsmanship and detail and really making it work. Gosh, it's really admirable, in the patience that a person has to do that. And generally, they're smaller paintings too. And I wouldn't want to spend 6 months on one painting. That would be hard for me.
Yeah, I mean, again, plus keeping the energy in a larger painting, it's probably a lot more difficult too, versus a.
Yeah. There are people that can pull it off, but but it's more difficult. And that's where you wind up going to things like murals, and they become more realistic. And so.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's
that's the deal on these things. So.